Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back to working over here on the Seller 6G drill grinder, and today I'm wanting to get the motor put back on, get the coolant tank put back on, probably try to start getting some of my electrical stuff put back on. And I will say, even though I kind of redid the electrical work on this before, I'm going to redo it all again, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but we're going to be putting in some new electrical stuff on here, make it look a little bit nicer, and also to have the proper setup I need for my coolant pump, which I didn't really have the right controller for it in the original setup. So we're just going to change it all out and make it look real nice and make it work real well. So let's get in here and get started on it. So we're going to start by putting the motor back in. I'd taken the motor out and we were working on this, getting things cleaned up and so forth. I went ahead and we got the motor cleaned up and repainted as well. Not doing anything else to it. It was in good shape. It was running just fine. So we're just going to put it back in there. So I've already been in here and kind of redone the wiring in this, wired it for the low voltage option. We did that previously, got new leads coming out of it that will go up to the motor starter, and all of that will go up inside the base. And like I said, we'll just bolt it all in place. So let me get down here and get it done. All right, this motor is kind of heavy and difficult to manage on my own, but I think we can get it. We'll just get it up into the hole here. There we go. All right, I got one bolt started. That'll kind of let me hang this a little bit. And now if I get a second bolt started, I think we'll have it. It should just pivot on that now. It'd be a lot easier if I had a second hand or third hand. All right, we got two bolts lined up now. And I think we got it. Very good. That was a bit of a pain, but we got it. So I got the pulley down here. This goes up on in this direction. I did just take some emery cloth and polish the shaft a little bit. Not a lot, just hit it real lightly. And also I took some emery on the inside of that bore and polished it out a little bit, just so hopefully this will go up together a little bit easier. And it came apart. Let's see here. I'm going to take that back off, I think. I've got the key that goes in here. Oops. And let me bump that up on there. We'll just drive that up on there. There we go, just like it was originally, where the shaft was flush with the end of the pulley here. And we're going to take our set screw and put back in there and tighten that key up. All right, this thing takes a 3/8 inch square head set screw, and I did just go grab a fresh one. The one that was in here was getting kind of rusty, so we're just going to put a nice clean one in here just because. And we'll tighten that up real good and tight, and that'll do just fine. With the motor back in, I can go ahead and put the counterweight back on here. This counterweight just kind of hangs off of this little tab right here. And what it does is it puts pressure up on this head here, so when you're tightening it up, it's just sliding in these ways down here. It pivots back and forth and just puts backwards pressure on it so that it's always just stays tight on there. So whenever you screw the handle in on the front, you'll see the counterweight kind of self-adjusting right there with it. That knocking is just the scepter on the front hitting the guard. All right, that is back on. That just hangs there. So over here on the side, we have the cast iron coolant tank that mounts up on these 3 bolts or 3 studs. So I'm gonna go ahead. This is gonna require a little bit of grunt work to get it up in place. This thing is heavy, but I think I can get it. I get that first one started kind of like on the motor. Kind of get it hanging from that one. I think we'll have it. There we go. All right, so now I can get this one going, and then there's one in the bottom. Go ahead and get these kind of tightened up in there. All right, then the final bolt goes on the bottom, and I will just note that the original was kind of rusty, so I'm just replacing it with a new fresh bolt. The ones on the top were kind of all right, so I'm not worried about those. And that is mounted back on there. Very good. Well, I need another gasket to go between the 2 coolant tanks, the coolant tank and the one that has the pump in it. So I've just got my gasket paper in here. I've already got it drawn up. So we'll just come over here and cut this gasket out real quick using the laser cutter. This makes really easy work out of cutting gaskets. So we'll just start her up. And this is just a little kind of a square gasket with a hole in the center. 4 bolt holes in it. I just drew it up real quick in Fusion 360, and we'll let it just cut it out. Uh-oh, I had a hang up there. Let me abort that. It caught the little centerpiece in here, dropped down in between the tray, and when it did, it drug the gasket paper up underneath it, so we'll have to do that again. All right, let me get that squared back up again. All right, I think this will work. I've got it now. What happened was that paper just dropped down between there. There was just one piece supporting it. Now I've got it lined up where there's 2 supports up underneath it, so hopefully that shouldn't happen again. And we're just going to cut it out beside it. Try it one more time. All right, that seems to work better. And there's our gasket. So this little tank here mounts up to the side, and this is where my coolant pump goes. We made this tank a while back, and that little gasket will fit right in between these. It'll just fit right there and hopefully keep the water from leaking. So let's, I'm going to just go ahead and put a screw through here or bolt through here, put a couple of them, get that gasket kind of hanging there. And see if I can get these lined up and going. Well, I had a little trouble getting those bottom ones to line up for some reason, but we got them. And now I'm just got a little short ratchet wrench in there and just tightening all this up. There's just 4/4 inch bolts holding everything together here. And I'm in pretty tight quarters. So the coolant pump just kind of drops down in here and bolts up on those 4 holes. Unfortunately, when I built this, I was thinking I was just going to put a bolt with a nut up underneath the bottom, but I didn't think about having to get my hand up underneath there to put the nut in place. So I should have tapped these holes, but they're already drilled out oversized. So what we're going to do is we're just going to basically put a little rivet insert. This is a little threaded insert that you just pop in there with like a pop rivet type tool, and that will get the thread in there for what we need. So to do this, I need to drill these out a little bit larger. They need to be a 25/64 hole for this to work. So I'm just going to take a drill bit here. I'm going to enlarge all these holes and then we'll rivet those in place. So we're going to take one of our 1/4 inserts here, screw it up on this little draw bolt, and then we'll drop that down in there. And I should be able to just squeeze this together, and that should crimp the bottom of that in place. Now let's try the second one here. I'll go around and do each one of them. I think we got those in place. I'm going to vacuum out this thing just to make sure we don't have any junk down in the bottom. Drop our coolant pump in place, and I think I want my outlet back here to be where the coolant comes out to be right here. That's kind of like where the old one was. We'll have to plumb it all in. I'll do that after a while, but let me go get some screws and we'll bolt that in place. And we'll just use some socket cap screws here to bolt it all in place. And there we go. Coolant pump installed. So I'd mentioned I was going to redo the electrical on this. I picked up this electrical cabinet here, this enclosure. I need to get it mounted over on the machine and get my controllers and stuff mounted inside this box as well. I got to do some modifications to it first though. There's a hole right here where the wires will come out of the machine and come into my electrical stuff. This is basically the size for a 3/4 inch piece of conduit to go into. And what I want to do is I need to put a hole in the back of my box for that to come into, that I can mount that conduit in to go up into it. I've kind of got that figured out where it needs to go, but I need to drill this out and get that mounted in there. And then we need to come up with a way to mount the box on here. I'm going to have to mount some pieces on here to actually bolt into. I got an idea how I'm going to do it, just got to do it. So, but first, let's go ahead and get this hole done. I need to do that first so I can figure out where I need to position the straps that's going to hold it on here. I'm going to start by drilling a pilot hole here with just a regular drill bit. There's actually 2 layers that this has to go through in this box. Now I'm going to switch over to one of these unibits. And this will enlarge that out. Make sure I don't get too big. Alright, that's the size I need for the outside, and I'll flip it around and drill through the inside to get the step in there for that pipe to go through. Let's see here. Perfect. All right, let me get all these metal shavings cleaned up, and we'll continue on. So this electrical panel has this little piece in the back that allows you to screw into without going through the back. I did put some marks in here. This is where I'm going to be mounting some components, and I need to drill some holes in here for the tap to go down into and for it to screw into. So I just got a 5/32 drill bit here, and I'm just going to drill out these little marked holes that I made. Just got a tap here, and I'm going to go around and tap each one of these holes. These are just going to be tap 1032 for a screw to go into. And I'll just hit all those holes real quick. Make it a lot easier to mount these parts. And now I've got my components that I want to put in here. I've got 2 motor starters with the proper heaters in it. This one will be for the main motor, and the other one will be for the coolant pump. And I also have a control transformer that's going to come in here as well. The control transformer will be used to power the voltage for the coils for the motor starters. The coils on these motor starters are 120 volts, whereas the power that I have coming in here is 240 volts. So basically the transformer is just converting that higher voltage down to a lower voltage for the control circuit and the coils, so I'm not having to run the higher voltage through my switches and stuff. It's a safety factor more than anything else, just so you're not running the full high voltage through your switches. Let me get all these screws mounted and components mounted, and we'll move on. All right, I've got my components all mounted in here. I've got my access pipe coming in, piece of conduit there that'll go up into the machine. So now I think what the next step is we need to get all this mounted over here onto the machine itself, or over onto the grinder, and then I can start getting everything wired up. So to mount that electrical enclosure over onto the machine, I'm going to put some brackets on here because it's actually a little bit too wide to just put directly into the casting. And also I'm going to put some little standoffs behind it. Notice there's a little bit of a taper. That's because the side of that machine is actually angled. It tapers down. So I went over and kind of measured how much difference I would need from the top one and the bottom one, and I just cut some little pieces of pipe. So my plan here is that we will drill and countersink these for some screws. These will come up, and the screws will just come up through these standoffs, and then I'll drill and tap some holes into the machine that will just pull it all together. And then we'll drill holes in this that will actually mount the enclosure to. So that's the game plan. I'm not going to show this. We're just going to go drill and countersink a couple of holes, and probably not even going to worry about welding these. They'll be captured in between there, so just sandwich them in between. Should be just fine with those little standoffs in there. So let me go get that knocked out, and we'll get these mounted over on the machine. All right, we've got this electrical cabinet mounted now, this enclosure. And as you can see, the standoffs are back here. The one down here is a lot closer than the one up top, but again, that's got the cabinet going straight up and down. So that looks good. We got our electrical components installed on the inside, so making good progress here. Over here on the coolant tank, there was this little piece here that screws up from the bottom and a piece of pipe fitting, and basically this is just an overflow, so when the water reaches the top of this, it will flow out the bottom. You can hook up a hose or something to it if you want to. It's just a 3/4 inch pipe thread. Now the original one was really banged up. The threads aren't going up, nothing's going up on those threads. So I just made a new one. And basically all this is a 3/4 inch nipple. And I just tapped the inside of that nipple for a 1/2 inch pipe thread, and I put a piece of 1/2 inch pipe coming up out of it. That's exactly what the original one was. And you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think, but this just screws up into a hole down in the bottom. I need to put some pipe dope on that first, so let me put a little bit of pipe sealant on that. And we'll send this up from the bottom now, through that hole. All right, that is set up ready to roll. Well, in full disclosure, I got to admit something. I made a mistake when we put the bearings back together in here, and many of you guys caught that mistake and informed me of it, and thank you for doing that. It was a bonehead thing that I just didn't catch myself doing. The lock nut that goes in here and this little cage that catches it, that you pin it back in, the lock nut has a bevel on it, and that bevel is designed to fit up into the bevel of the lock nut. When I put these together, I put them in backwards, and that does not allow that nut to go all the way up flat against this little keeper, the little retaining ring. So guys, I did it off camera. I took all this apart and redid it. What a pain. But again, thank you guys for catching that and letting me know about it, and we got it straightened out. I did want to admit it. When I make a mistake, I make a mistake, and I'm human. I make mistakes just like anybody. I knew better than that, just wasn't thinking when I did it. And anyway, we got it straightened out though. So thank you guys for pointing that out, and rest assured we got it set up like it needs to now. I've got a little push button station that I want to mount on this to actually stop button, and a coolant switch for the coolant. And I've been debating on where to mount it at. There's not a whole lot of really good options, of places to put it on the machine. I think what I've come down to is we're just going to mount it kind of right here to the front, or the side rather, of the electrical panel. That's going to be out of the way of everything, and I think that's just kind of my best option. So I've got a transfer punch, 3/16 inch transfer punch that will fit the holes in this. I'm going to transfer my hole pattern over here. I'm going to just start by putting a single hole in here, and then we'll go around and get the rest of them. So I'll put one in right there. I'm going to drill a 3/16 inch hole right there. So I got a socket cap screw that'll fit up into the hole here. Just going to put it in there. It's just kind of threading up in there a little bit by hand right now. I'm going to put nuts behind them, but I just want to get it in place where I can go ahead and transfer my next hole. I'm going to do the one caddy cornered from the first one. And once we get those bolted in place, we can do the other ones. So let me get this hole transferred. All right, let me transfer these last two holes, get those drilled, and we'll install it. That is nice and mounted in. All right, that is mounted nice and strong, and we can put our push buttons up inside of that and have what we need. So now I need to run me a connection from here to the box. So I need to come up with a elbow of some kind to go down in here in the bottom. Let me get that figured out. And we're probably getting pretty close to wiring this thing. Guys, we've made some pretty good progress on this machine today. I'm pretty happy where we're at. Still got stuff to do though, and I did kind of get to a stopping point, mainly because I need some supplies to finish doing the electrical work inside the cabinet here. And there was one little thing I'm gonna have to order. It's gonna probably be next week before it gets in here, and I need to run it to the supply store and get some smaller gauge wire for the control circuit. I didn't have any. I didn't really want to use the bigger stuff on it. Could, but I'll just use a little bit. I'll just get the right wire and take care of that. So we'll get back on this probably next week one day and hopefully get the electrical stuff finished up. Still also need to get my plumbing done on the coolant system. That needs to be done, and there's 2 pins that go on this cover for the grinding wheel. I need to get those machined and put in there and get the cover put on. And then really the big thing left to do is the little tilting mechanism on the top. I need to do some work on it. It's got a broken piece in it that I got to fix. That's going to be fairly involved, but nothing too terrible. So, but we are getting closer and closer to the finish line on it, and looking forward to getting this thing knocked out so that we can kind of get on the next project. I need to get this machine where I can use it, because I got some jobs coming up where I'm really going to need to use it. So this did kind of become a priority just to go ahead and get it done and finished. But I got lots of stuff we need to be working on. Besides this, sometimes it's hard for me to get my own stuff worked into the agenda, and I just have to take time to do it from time to time. So with that, guys, that's a wrap for today. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please do that. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. If you're watching the videos, just go ahead and hit it. It helps me out a bunch. Also, leave a comment down below. Hit the like button. All that really helps out a lot with the algorithms. And big, huge thank you to everyone who supports the site financially through Patreon and PayPal. It enables me, like I always say, to take the time, shoot the videos, and bring this content to you. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes besides the work that's being done in the shop. In fact, it's probably only about half of what you see is in the labor that goes into this when you get into the editing and all the videoing and everything else behind the scenes. And I do it all. So anyway, guys, with that, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, as always, thanks for watching.